So we've all been there.
Right.
That feeling of an incredible high, that moment when everything just, I don't know, it just clicks. The world feels perfect, totally open.
Absolutely. Full of possibility.
But then, of course, there's the opposite, that soul-crushing low. The anxiety, the suffering, it's just gnawing at you.
Yeah, that's a feeling familiar to, I think, everyone.
But here's the thing that I've been really thinking about. If these highs and lows are just, a response to what happens to us.
External events.
Exactly. Then why is it that some people can just sail through really tough times, really difficult stuff, with grace? And other people, they just get completely crippled by a pretty minor setback.
It's a profound thought. It really is. Because it means if you follow that logic that we hold the key, we're in charge of our own internal weather system.
It kind of reminds me of that line from the poet John Milton.
From Paradise Lost, yeah. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven.
Exactly that. And if that's actually true, if our perception really dictates our emotional reality, then we're not just victims of circumstance.
No, we're not. It suggests that we might be, maybe unconsciously, but actively choosing our own suffering.
And that's a staggering thought.
Yeah.
It really is, because for so many of us, I think, emotions feel like this overwhelming, mystical power.
Like a torrent.
A torrent, yeah. Something we get swept away by. We feel controlled, not in control. We just sort of hunker down and wait for the storm to pass.
Exactly. And the storm usually only passes when we find a new distraction or, something outside of us changes for the better.
Right.
Our mission today is to move past that, to get out of that reactive state. We are doing a deep dive into the very core of emotional control and self-mastery. We've got a fantastic stack of material here that acts as a genuine instruction manual for your mind.
The one you were supposed to get at birth but never did.
The one you never received, exactly.
And our source material for this is the incredibly actionable book, Master Your Emotions, by Thibaut Meurisse. He's an author, a coach, and he's also the founder of whatispersonaldevelopment.org.
And Meurisse's whole motivation for writing this book, he says, was realizing that emotions basically determine the quality of our entire lives, our relationships, our careers, our health.
Everything.
Everything. And yet there's rarely a comprehensive practical guide on what they are, where they come from, and, most importantly, how we can actually use them for personal growth. He provides the roadmap.
He really does. He argues this lack of understanding about our own internal operating system is what holds so many of us back from realizing our potential. And if you appreciate getting these kinds of deep insights and you want the fastest way to get up to speed on the world's best strategies for personal growth, please make sure you follow the deep dive wherever you listen. That way you'll never miss another analysis like this one.
Because until you master the internal world, the external world is always going to feel like a struggle.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's start with the first and maybe the most uncomfortable part of this material, the emotional blueprint. We have to start with this paradox that, on a fundamental level, our own brain is actively working against our happiness.
That is the essential starting point. It's cynical, but it's an undeniable truth. The number one job of your brain is survival, not happiness.
Not happiness.
No, it was designed over millions of years of evolution in a very, very hostile world to do one thing, keep you alive long enough to pass on your genes. And the consequence of that ancient design is a hardwired bias toward negativity.
Which we call the negativity bias. It's the brain's default setting.
It is.
And it explains so much. It's why we can have, 10 great things happen in a day, but we spend all night fixated on that one slightly critical email.
Or the one friend who seemed a bit cold.
Exactly. Your brain is essentially an ancient, outdated alarm system. It's running old software.
He hasn't had a system update in a few millennia? Not at all. It is constantly, and I mean exhaustively, scanning your environment for threats. And because it prioritized threat detection over well-being, our attention is just instantly yanked toward anything that even remotely registers as danger.
Even though our world today is, objectively safer than at any point in human history.
The internal safety mechanism hasn't updated. It doesn't know that. It still thinks we're on the savannah.
And what's really fascinating here is how this old survival instinct translates into very modern emotional pain, especially the fear of rejection.
Oh, this is a powerful one. Because back in, say, the Pleistocene era, Being rejected from your tribe wasn't just embarrassing, it meant a swift and brutal death.
Right. No defense, no food, no future.
Exactly. So the brain learned to interpret social exclusion as a literal existential threat, which means when you experience a modern rejection, someone ghosts you on a dating app, you get an unkind comment online, even just mild criticism at work, your body goes into the same high alert state it would have if you were cast out of the cave.
But the thing is, getting rejected from a party, or even losing a job, it rarely carries any real consequence to our long-term physical survival. We have shelter, we have resources. The actual threat level is practically zero.
But the emotional pain is still so intense. Meurisse shares this great anecdote in the book, one that's so relatable. He talks about an author who has, say, 50 glowing 5-star reviews.
Oh.
But they receive a single 1-star review. And that's all they can think about.
They're devastated.
Completely. The rational brain knows the 50-to-1 ratio is fantastic. But the old survivalist ego, it interprets that one piece of criticism as a direct threat to its standing, its worth, its ability to survive. It just floods the system with stress hormones.
And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone listening. If we fail to consciously separate the real threats, the ones that actually endanger our physical survival, from the imaginary ones generated by our ego or our social anxiety,
we end up in the state of constant, unnecessary pain and worry. It's stress that we literally manufactured ourselves.
and that self-inflicted pain is what just tanks the quality of our lives. So if we accept this premise that our mind is misinterpreting reality, then the solution becomes really clear.
We have to reprogram it. We have to actively take the wheel. Our greatest power is the ability to use our thoughts to shape our interpretation of reality and then respond to events in a way that actually empowers us.
But this reprogramming is so hard because our internal chemistry is also being hijacked. It's constantly pushing us toward this illusion of quick fix happiness through dopamine.
Right, dopamine. Everyone's heard of it, but its role is often misunderstood. It's our internal incentive system. It rewards behaviors that were essential for survival, like seeking food, achieving a goal, mating. It gives you that rush of motivation and then satisfaction.
And the problem is that in our modern world, that whole evolutionary reward system has become obsolete. And it's incredibly exploitable.
It is. We don't have to hunt for days to get a dopamine hit from eating. We can get it instantly. And marketers, tech platforms, they're absolute masters at exploiting this dopamine loop.
They use the same mechanism as a slot machine, right? The variable reward schedule.
Precisely. You don't know when the next like is coming, or the next message, or the next interesting piece of news. So your brain stays in this perpetual state of seeking, of anticipation. Those notifications, the infinite scroll on social media, they are perfectly engineered to trigger a micro-release of dopamine to keep you hooked.
And this artificial flood of dopamine creates these subtle but really pervasive addictions that just rob us of genuine, lasting happiness. We get desensitized to natural rewards.
And we see the most tragic consequences when this system completely overrides our most basic, primal survival instincts. The book brings up the really sobering example of Lee Sung-sup from 2005.
He was the man who died playing a video game.
For 58 hours straight, he died from heart failure brought on by sheer exhaustion and dehydration.
Because he actively refused to eat or drink. That is just chilling. It shows how powerful this hijacked system can become. The artificial reward of the game was more powerful than the instinct to drink water.
It completely overpowered it. So the key takeaway here, and this applies to absolutely everyone, is you have to identify your own subtle addictions. It might not be extreme gaming.
Sure.
It could be your phone, it could be TV, mindless snacking, or, and this is a crucial one, it could be an addiction to a pattern of thinking, like constant worrying or playing the victim.
All those little loops are robbing you of the energy you need for real happiness.
Exactly.
And speaking of real happiness, we have to talk about this myth, the myth of one day I will finally be happy.
Ah, yes. Once I get the promotion.
Once I buy the dream house.
Once I retire, then I'll achieve perpetual happiness.
The mind sells us this story as motivation.
But the reality is so much more complicated, and it's because of a core psychological concept called hedonic adaptation.
Our minds are just exceptionally adaptive. They're built for efficiency, which means they get used to new situations really, really quickly, both good and bad.
So the initial excitement from that new car or that big accomplishment, it just wears off. It wears off fast, often within weeks, maybe months. Then your mind just resets its baseline and starts craving the next big thing. You're always chasing the more.
The book cites this classic piece of research from 1978 that absolutely proves this point. It's eye-opening.
The study that compared lottery winners and paraplegics. The researchers wanted to see how a massive life-altering good event versus a massive life-altering bad event influenced long-term happiness.
And the findings were just incredible.
They were stunning. 1 year after the event, both groups, the lottery winners who seemingly had everything and the paraplegics who had lost so much, had largely reverted back to their original pre-event level of happiness.
Back to their baseline. It just suggests that all this external stuff, our bank account, our health, our relationship status, it has a surprisingly tiny impact on our long-term emotional state.
And modern research confirms this. The psychologist Sanjo Lubomyrsky suggests that only about 10% of our happiness is linked to those external factors.
I mean, 10%.
Only 10. A full 50% is genetics, the disposition you're born with. But the crucial, empowering 40% that is linked directly to internal factors, our attitude, our choices, how we interpret our lives.
So the bottom line is, if you're unhappy, moving to a new city or getting a new partner is just a temporary spike. The real solution has to lie in mastering that 40%. And that brings us to the biggest self-saboteur of all.
The ego.
The ego. This is the mind-created identity. It's the elaborate story you've built your whole life based on labels, interpretations, experiences. And the critical insight here is that this story, this ego, it has no concrete reality. It's just a structure of thought.
So it's not my actual self, the conscious observer. It's a narrative layer I've attached to the self. But if it's not real, why is it so dominant? Why is it so hard to let go of?
Because, just like that ancient survival brain, the ego is restless, it's fearful, and it's concerned only with its own survival, not with your peace of mind.
And to survive, it needs constant validation. It needs identity through attachment. So it forces you to identify with labels. Your name, your job title, your political beliefs, your achievements, your possessions.
And that fuels consumerism, right? Marketing is all about this. We don't buy a jacket for warmth. We buy it to tell a story about who we are. We equate having with being.
Absolutely. Marketers are masters of that. But the ego shows up in other ways, too. Think about the constant need for approval that drives so many of us. That craving for validation from parents or partners, that approval just confirms the ego's story that I am worthy.
You see it play out in families all the time. The parent whose ego is living vicariously through their kid's success in sports or academics, desperately trying to control the child's choices to fulfill their own ego's desires.
And that need for identity and control, it inevitably fuels the darker side of the ego. This is where we get the need to feel superior, which leads to gossiping, to putting others down. It leads to arguing just to be right, or constant complaining to reinforce the story of, I am a victim.
So if the ego is just a story, then being excessively desperately attached to that story must be the root cause of most of our negative emotions.
That is the ultimate insight of this whole section. We only feel things like anger, resentment, stress, depression, when life doesn't follow the script we wrote.
Or when someone challenges a piece of our identity.
Exactly. The moment that story is threatened, the ego sounds the alarm and we get defensive or upset or deeply resentful. The path to emotional control requires consciously letting go of that attachment to the narrative.
Okay, so that brings us to the solutions. We've established that our biology and our constructed identity are kind of setting us up to fail. But the good news is we're not helpless. We have multiple accessible levers of control.
Yes, and material transitions beautifully here. It introduces the body emotion loop. We all know that our emotions affect our body. Grief makes us slouch. Fear makes our heart race. So the inverse has to be true.
We can deliberately use our body to change our emotional state.
We can. It's the scientific basis for fake it until you make it. You use your physiology as the prompt instead of waiting around for the feeling to just show up.
And the research here is pretty compelling. The famous work on power, Poses by Amy Cuddy.
A perfect illustration. Subjects were asked to adopt a high power pose, standing tall, hands on hips, chest out, for just 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
And this simple physical change resulted in significant, measurable hormonal changes.
What were those changes exactly?
Well, testosterone, which is the hormone associated with confidence and dominance, it increased by 25%. And at the same time, cortisol, the main stress hormone, decreased by 10%.
Wow. So the physical pose came before the emotional state. You don't have to feel confident to stand confidently.
You unlock the posture that makes you confident, and the reverse is just as powerful. The book shares David K. Reynolds' experience of clinically creating a state of depression.
Actually inducing it in himself.
Not intentionally, To prove this very point, he adopted the physical markers of depression: slouched posture, head down, minimal movement, and he paired this with repetitive negative self-talk.
Things like,
It's hopeless, I'm helpless, I give up. And this commitment, both physical and verbal, prove that you can induce a genuine emotional state through action. And his recovery also involved actively changing his body and forcing himself to move. It's the way out of the loop.
which makes the case for exercise incredibly clear. If you can make yourself depressed by slumping, you have to be able to leverage movement for positive effects.
Oh, the evidence is overwhelming. Multiple studies show that regular exercise can treat mild to moderate depression just as effectively as antidepressants. The Blumenthal study is a classic example.
Like that one fine.
It showed patients who just exercised regularly had similar high rates of remission as the group on antidepressants. Plus, the long-term benefit is that regular movement helps prevent future relapse.
And the crucial thing for the listener here is how accessible this tool is. It's not just a long-term thing. There's research showing you can get a significant mood boost in just 5 minutes of moderate exercise.
That is an immediate lever of control. You can pull it right now.
So beyond posture and exercise, we also have to look at the basics we take for granted. Things like sleep, breathing, and our environment.
Absolutely. Let's start with sleep. Its impact is just profound. Sleep deprivation directly increases our tendency toward negative emotions. It's why we're so grumpy and irritable when we're running on fumes.
And it's not just that. It also reduces our ability to enjoy positive experiences. It kind of flattens our emotional range.
Exactly. So the material emphasizes a few practical strategies. 1, make your room pitch black. Light messes with your hormones. 2, avoid electronic devices for at least an hour before bed. That blue light can cut your melatonin production by up to 50%.
Wow, 50%.
And finally, just have a simple evening ritual, something that signals to your body that it's time to wind down.
Okay, and then there's breathing, the one thing we do all day without thinking about it. But it offers a direct line to emotional regulation.
It really does. Just consciously slowing your breathing signals to your nervous system that you're safe, which immediately reduces anxiety. The material even gives specific breathing cycles for different outcomes.
Like what?
So breathing about 8 times a minute is good for general stress relief. 4 cycles a minute can bring on a really intense meditative awareness. But the most dramatic one
Is the extremely slow breathing.
yes, just 1 single breath per minute, a very deep, slow inhale, and an equally slow, controlled exhale. This is cited as being able to dramatically calm intense anxiety, fear, or even panic. It forces the mind to focus and regulate.
We also have to zoom out and look at our environment. I mean, being around chronic negativity, whether it's pessimistic relatives, toxic news, or just a messy desk, it can be so draining.
Your environment is a constant, subtle cue. The act of decluttering a desk, for example, isn't just about clearing physical space. It often gives you this surprising jolt of motivation and a feeling of control. It proves our external world influences our internal state.
And music is another great tool for this. We all use it subconsciously. But the sources stress that it works best when you're intentional about it.
Intent is the key. Studies show positive music really works to boost your mood when you listen with the aim of feeling better. It's the difference between passive listening and active mood modification.
There's a great example from an endurance athlete, Christopher Berglund.
Yes, he consciously creates specialized playlists. He calls it his arsenal of sound that he uses to fortify his mindset even when he's in extreme pain during a race. He has conditioned specific music to trigger specific emotional states.
Okay, so we've covered the physical and environmental levers. Now let's move into the purely mental domain, the power of our thoughts and our words. This is where we seize control of that crucial 40%.
This is the big one. The material cites everyone from Emerson to Gandhi, and they all converge on the same truth. Your thoughts define who you are, and eventually they create your reality. It's a system.
Thoughts generate emotions.
Which dictate our actions, which ultimately shape our results and our world.
So if someone is constantly thinking, I'm not good enough, that creates a feeling of shame, which then makes them avoid challenges, which then just reinforces the original negative thought. It's a vicious cycle.
A self-fulfilling prophecy. And the brilliant way to break this is by leveraging visualization, because your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real, lived experience and a vividly imagined one.
You can literally trick your mind into feeling good.
You can. You can get it to experience gratitude or excitement or confidence just by deeply visualizing it. But it can't be just a quick mental picture.
Right, it has to be immersive.
It needs sensory detail. You have to ask, what would I see? What sounds would I hear? What would I physically feel? The more detail you simulate, the more real it becomes to your brain, and the stronger those neural pathways get.
And beyond just thoughts, we need to be really conscious of the language we use, both in our head and out loud.
Words have so much power. We need to get rid of language that signals uncertainty. Replacing I hope or I try with a definitive I will instantly changes your mental posture. It's a subtle shift that forces a more committed, assertive mindset.
And this leads right into the practice of positive affirmations. These simple sentences repeated over and over until the subconscious accepts them as the new truth.
But how you do them is critical. First, always use the present tense. I am confident, not I will be confident. Second, avoid negatives. Instead of I am not shy, you say I am socially confident, and you have to repeat them daily.
The book also mentions Tony Robbins' method of incantation.
Yes. Incantation is just affirmation supercharged with that body emotion loop we talked about.
So you don't just whisper it.
No, you engage your whole body. You recite the phrase with motion, with conviction, with volume, with real emotional intensity. You might stand up and pump your fist while shouting, I am determined, I am unstoppable. This physical commitment just cements the mental change so much faster.
We've got a really clear toolbox now. Physical adjustments, controlling our environment, manipulating our thoughts. So the next step is understanding the actual mechanism of how negative emotions get made in the first place so we can dismantle them.
Exactly. The material starts by breaking negative emotions into two types. Type 1 are the necessary spontaneous survival emotions. The fear that makes you hit the brakes to avoid an accident. These are helpful.
But type 2 is where we live. That's where all our suffering is.
That's where the bulk of it resides. Type 2 emotions are the self-created ones. They don't come from immediate danger. They come from getting entangled with our thoughts. These are the emotions that stick around for days, weeks, months.
Like constantly replaying an argument.
Or fixating on money problems. These are the thoughts we allow to grow roots. And to manage them, the material gives us this crucial, actionable formula. It's the skeleton key. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition. Strong emotion.
And if you remove any one of those three pieces, the emotion can't survive.
It can't persist or intensify. Let's break that down, starting with interpretation. This is the idea that suffering happens when reality doesn't meet our expectations. We have these rigid ideas about how life should be.
I should have gotten that promotion. My friend should have called me back.
Right. And the moment reality deviates from that script, that gap is where suffering lives. The event itself, not getting the promotion, is neutral. It's just a fact. It can't be upsetting without your interpretation of it.
The story you add to it, like, this means I'm a failure.
You add the negative meaning. It's what the Stoics taught. It's not the event that hurts us. It's our judgment about the event.
Okay, so next in the formula is identification. This is where I think most people get stuck.
This is vital. An emotion cannot last unless you give it your attention and identify with it. So you are not sad. You experience sadness. You are not your anger. You are witnessing a feeling of anger.
Meurisse uses that great analogy of the sun and the clouds.
You are the sun, always present, always whole. The emotions are just temporary clouds passing over. Identifying with the emotion is what gives it power. Detachment is just recognizing these feelings are temporary visitors, not who you are.
And finally, repetition. This is the part of the cycle that turns a small annoyance into a chronic misery.
It is. If you dwell on a friend's betrayal, you replay that scene in your mind over and over, and every single time you repeat that memory and reaffirm your interpretation, that was unfair, I hate them, you are conditioning your mind. You're strengthening the neural pathways for resentment.
So to stop the emotion from growing, you have to break the cycle. You have to let go immediately.
You have to stop the repetition.
Which means if we can just change our interpretation, we can change the entire emotional outcome. That's the power of reframing.
It's everything. The emotion is generated entirely by the interpretation we choose. It's why two people can face the exact same crisis. One sees a devastating failure, the other sees an opportunity for reinvention.
But to do that reframing, you have to look deeper. You have to challenge the underlying assumptions that are causing the suffering in the first place. And that's hard work.
It is, because these assumptions are often things we just blindly accept as true. Things like, problems should be avoided, or I must get married by 30, or complaining is normal. By consciously questioning these rules we live by, we can undermine the entire negative emotional response.
So there's a practical self-questioning process here. When a negative emotion comes up, instead of just getting swept away, You pause.
You pause and you ask questions like, am I choosing to play the victim right now? Or am I looking for the lesson in this? Am I trying to change something I can't control? Or can I accept reality as it is?
So once we've questioned the interpretation, we have to do the final step, letting go.
Mm.
The book reminds us that emotions are energy in motion.
And repressing them, stuffing them down, it interrupts that natural flow. They accumulate and become this heavy emotional baggage that becomes part of our identity.
So the goal isn't to fight the emotion. It's to just observe it with detachment and let it move through you. And for this, the source provides a specific systematic technique, Hale Dwoskin's 5-step process, the Sedona method.
And this method is so powerful because it's deceptively simple, and it forces immediate surrender. We should walk through it.
Let's do it. Let's say you're feeling immense frustration over an argument with a coworker. It just keeps looping in your head.
Okay, so step 1. You focus on that feeling, that knot in your stomach, the tension in your jaw. You label it, I am experiencing frustration. Step 2. You ask yourself, could I let this feeling go? And you just have to be honest. The simple act of asking creates space.
And if the answer is yes, then you move to step 3.
Step 3, ask yourself, would I let it go? Again, be honest. Do you secretly get some satisfaction from being right, or would you rather have peace? If you want peace, the answer is yes. Step 4, ask when. And the answer is always now.
That moment when, answered with now, that's you asserting control. You choose to release it in this instant.
And step 5 is just to repeat. You do it again and again until you feel the emotion dissipate. It's about consistent, mindful release.
Okay, so once we master releasing the negative, the next step is to intentionally condition the positive.
Yeah.
To use that same formula to make emotions like gratitude and confidence easier to access.
Exactly. We apply the formula positively. Interpretation, visualize good things, plus identification, feel the positive emotion deeply, plus repetition, daily practice. You're essentially inoculating yourself against negativity.
And the book offers some great conditioning tools. Gratitude is the first and simplest.
Yes, but it needs to be a daily routine. Write down 3 things you're genuinely grateful for, or verbally thank people. A deeper practice is to appreciate one specific object in detail, like your cup of coffee. Think about the thousands of people and processes it took to get it to you. That depth of appreciation shifts everything.
And for generating excitement, the tool is visualizing your goals. Clarity is power.
A daily visualization of your ideal life, what you would eat, where you would live, how you would feel when that goal is achieved. That fuels massive enthusiasm. The clearer the vision, the more it pulls you toward it.
And finally, for decisiveness, we have the 5-second rule from Mel Robbins. This is to short-circuit the brain's tendency to veto anything difficult.
The rule is you have 5 seconds from the moment an idea hits you, I should go exercise, I should send that email, to take physical action before your mind kills the impulse. You just count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you physically move. It's a hack for psychological resistance.
It's amazing how many emotional challenges boil down to those 3 things: interpretation, identification, and repetition. So now that we have the mechanism, let's apply this framework to some specific, really common challenges.
Yes, and this part of the book confirms the main theme. Emotions are just guides. They are messengers reminding you to make a change. If you ignore that small voice, eventually your body starts talking through pain or illness. Emotional suffering is a sign that something is wrong with your mind, your interpretation of reality.
Okay, let's start with a huge one. Procrastination. It feels like a time management problem, but the source material says no, it's a deep emotional issue.
The root cause is almost always fear. Fear of failure, fear of it being too hard, fear of doing a bad job and being exposed as inadequate. So your mind, which is programmed for comfort, tells you the safest thing to do is nothing.
And we use excuses. I'm too tired is a classic. But the book challenges this with the Navy SEAL 40% rule.
That rule suggests that when your mind tells you you're totally exhausted and done, you've actually only used about 40% of your real energy reserves. You have vast reserves, but your mind tries to conserve them by making you feel tired way before you actually are.
And the other big excuse, I'll do a poor job.
You challenge that by asking yourself, if I think I'll do a poor job today, what logical evidence do I have that I'll magically be better tomorrow? It's just a delay tactic.
So what are the action steps?
First, clarify your why. A strong emotional reason will neutralize procrastination. Second, start small to build momentum. Third, just get started. Commit to only 5 minutes. That's often enough to break through the initial wall of fear and get into a flow state.
Next, that pervasive, debilitating feeling of, I'm not good enough. This is described as killing more dreams than anything else. It comes directly from low self-esteem.
And people with low self-esteem operate with this massive cognitive bias. They're experts at filtering out compliments, dismissing them as just people being nice, while magnifying every single failure. This just reinforces their negative story about themselves.
So the solution is to consciously override that filter, to force yourself to acknowledge the positive.
The recommendation is to keep a win log or a self-esteem jar, a daily ritual where you track every accomplishment no matter how small. I woke up on time, I ate a healthy breakfast, I finished that difficult email. You're conditioning your mind to look for wins instead of failures.
And we also have to learn to just accept a compliment. Why is that so hard for people?
Because the ego is attached to the negative story, so it resists any evidence to the contrary. Refusing a compliment is described as throwing away a gift and disrespecting the giver. The simple, radical solution is to just say a sincere, unadorned thank you and let that feeling of appreciation actually sink in.
Okay, let's move to stress and worry. The key insight here is radical. It says stress doesn't exist outside of you. No situation is inherently stressful. Stress is something we create and have to take responsibility for.
And it's important to differentiate between stress and worry. Worry is concern over the past or the future, replaying a mistake or anticipating a tough meeting. Most of our worry is wasted energy.
And the tool for dealing with worry is the control matrix.
An excellent tool. You categorize all your worries into 3 buckets. 1, things you can fully control, like cleaning your desk. 2, things you have some control over, like preparing for an interview. And 3, things you have no control over, the weather, the economy, what other people do.
So what do we do with all this stuff in that no control bucket?
For those, you have to apply the 2-step reframe. Either you change your behavior, if traffic is uncontrollable, you leave earlier, or you reframe the situation. The traffic jam is now your time for audiobooks. You take total responsibility for your internal reaction, even when you can't control the external event.
Now for one of the most toxic emotions, resentment. Nelson Mandela's quote about it being like drinking poison and hoping it kills your enemies is just perfect.
Resentment is basically just prolonged anger because someone didn't act the way you wanted them to. It's often because you didn't communicate your needs clearly, and because you maintain it with repetition, it is entirely self-destructive.
So resentment is actually a signal, an emotional growth opportunity. It's telling you that you have to prioritize your own peace of mind over being right or holding a grudge.
And the path to releasing it is to break the formula. First, reevaluate your interpretation. Did you over-dramatize it? Then, if possible, confront the person and clear the air. Third, forgive, which is really an act of self-love to free yourself from the bitterness.
And the final critical step, forget.
Yes. You must stop replaying the scene in your mind. The resentment is fueled by that repetition cycle. Every time the memory comes up, you apply the Sedona method and you release it. You cut off its oxygen supply.
Finally, let's talk about fear and discomfort. The feelings that come up whenever we try to move outside our comfort zone.
This brings us back to the law of growth. Things either grow or they die. There is no standing still. When we don't move beyond our comfort zone, we start to stagnate. We start to die inside. It's like that Benjamin Franklin quote.
Some people die at 25 and aren't buried until 75.
That's the essence of it. That fear is just your mind trying to protect the comfortable status quo.
So we have to redefine courage.
Exactly. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking action despite the fear. You cultivate courage by getting used to discomfort. That feeling of anxiety when you're about to do something new is often the most reliable sign that you should go ahead and do it. It's a signpost for personal growth.
That really wraps up our deep dive into master your emotions and the core tools Meurisse offers to seize control of our often chaotic emotional lives.
We've really explored this fundamental truth that emotions are just transient. They're non-definitive experiences meant to be used as guides, not dictators. We covered the psychological traps, the survival mechanism, the dopamine loop, the ego, and the physical levers we can pull, like posture and breathing. We detailed that core formula, interpretation plus identification plus repetition, and the actionable steps to release pain and focus our energy.
I think the clearest conclusion from all this is that you are not your emotions. You are the silent, steady observer that witnesses them. They come and go, but you remain. We saw just how much of our mental suffering, the anxiety, the worry, is entirely self-inflicted. People are just constantly running in these mental circles, fighting problems that only exist in their minds, manufactured by a fearful ego and an ancient brain.
Yeah, the philosopher Eckhart Tolle pointed out that only humans experience this kind of neurotic, self-imposed negativity. Animals and plants, they just are. Your ultimate job based on this material is to refuse to identify with the suffering story and just reconnect with reality.
So a final thought for everyone listening.
If your thoughts and your emotions truly determine the quality of your life, how long can you consciously choose to postpone your own peace and happiness by clinging to a negative story or an interpretation that creates unnecessary pain? The greatest power you have is the ability to choose how you interpret the very next thought that crosses your mind. What intentional, empowering choice will you choose to believe right now?